My name is Hannah Voss, and I am 29 years old. 6 years ago, my mother told me that if I married Daniel, I would no longer be welcome in her house, and that she had no interest in being a grandmother to children she did not approve of. Last Tuesday, she stood on my porch for the first time in 6 years, holding a wrapped gift and a hopeful smile. My 3-year-old daughter opened the door before I could stop her. She looked up at the woman standing there, tilted her head the way 3-year-olds do when they are genuinely trying to solve a puzzle, and asked the only question that made sense to her: "Who are you?" My mother's face did something I had never seen it do before. It cracked. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Drop your city and the time where you are watching from. I love reading where everyone is. Let me take you back to the spring I met Daniel, and the conversation that started everything. I grew up in a town called Millbrook, the kind of place where everyone's mother knew everyone else's business before dinner was on the table. My mother, Carol Voss, was the kind of woman people described as a pillar of the community. She ran the church bake sale committee. She organized the neighborhood watch newsletter. She had opinions about everything, delivered with the confidence of someone who had never once considered she might be wrong. My father, Russell, mostly stayed quiet and let her run things. It was easier that way. It had always been easier that way. I was the only child. Every decision I made growing up passed through some invisible filter of what Carol would think, what Carol would say, whether Carol would approve. I did not fully understand how deep that filter went until I was 23. I met Daniel Reyes at a continuing education class for project management certification. He sat 2 seats away, asked smart questions, and made the instructor visibly nervous every time he raised his hand. We started getting coffee after class, then dinner, then most evenings. Daniel was steady in a way I had never experienced before. He listened entirely. He remembered small details about my day that I had mentioned only once weeks earlier. He had a way of disagreeing with me that never once felt like an attack. He was also Mexican-American, 3rd generation, raised in or outside the city by parents who ran a small auto repair shop for 30 years. I brought him home for Thanksgiving in our first year together. My mother was polite, too polite, the kind of politeness that has edges. She asked him where his family was from. He said his grandparents had come from Jalisco in the 1960s. She nodded slowly and said, "How interesting," in a tone that suggested it was not interesting at all. After dinner, in the kitchen, drying dishes, she said the thing I would replay in my head for years afterward. She said, "You know, I have nothing against people like him, Hannah. I just worry about how complicated things get. Different backgrounds, different expectations. It is harder than you think." I told her his background was not complicated. He had a steady job, a close family, and treated me better than anyone ever had. She said, "We will see," in the voice she used when she had already decided the outcome and was simply waiting for reality to catch up. I did not realize, at the time, that I was hearing a warning, not an opinion. Daniel proposed 2 years later, on a Tuesday evening, in our small apartment, with a ring he had saved for in installments for 8 months. I called my mother the next morning. The way you call your mother when something wonderful happens and you assume she will be wonderful back. She was quiet for several seconds. Then she asked if I was certain. She asked if I had thought through what our life would actually look like. She asked if I understood that some things about a person's background do not change just because you love them. I told her I was certain. I told her we were getting married in the spring. She told me she needed time to process this. She took 6 months to process it. During those 6 months, she did not call. She did not ask about the venue, the dress, the guest list. When I called her, she answered, but every conversation felt like talking through a closed door. 3 weeks before the wedding, she called and asked to meet me for lunch alone. I thought, hopefully, that this was the moment things would shift. She ordered a salad, folded her napkin precisely, and told me that she and my father would not be attending the wedding. She said it the way she announced committee decisions. Final, considered, not up for debate. She said, "I cannot in good conscience stand there and pretend I support this. I love you, Hannah, but I will not pretend." I asked her what, exactly, she did not support. I asked her to say the actual words. She would not say them. She never said them directly, not once, not in 6 years. She used phrases instead. Different backgrounds, complicated dynamics, things that are harder than you realize. I understood what she meant. I have always understood what she meant. She simply never had the courage to say it out loud. Even to herself, Daniel and I got married in May, with 40 guests, none of whom were my parents. His mother, Rosa, cried through the entire ceremony, the good kind of crying. She hugged me afterward and told me I was her daughter now, fully, completely. No qualifications attached. It was the first time in my engagement that anyone had told me I belonged somewhere without conditions. I sent my mother a wedding photo 2 weeks later. The way you send an olive branch you already suspect will be ignored. It came back unopened. Return to sender, stamped in red. I did not cry about it that day. I had used up most of my tears in the months leading up to the wedding. I simply put the returned envelope in a drawer and closed it. For the first 2 years of our marriage, I tried. I called on holidays. I sent cards. I left voicemails that I rehearsed in my head before recording them. Careful, measured, never accusatory. My mother answered sometimes. The conversations were short, surface level. The verbal equivalent of small talk with a stranger at a bus stop. My father called occasionally. Always when my mother was not home, always brief. Always ending with some version of give your mother time. 6 years is a long time to give someone. I got pregnant in year 3 of our marriage. I told my mother over the phone, the way you tell someone news you are no longer certain they deserve to hear first, but feel obligated to share anyway. She said, congratulations. She did not ask about due dates. She did not ask if we knew the gender. She asked instead whether we had discussed what the child would be told about its background. I hung up the phone and sat on my kitchen floor for 20 minutes. My daughter, Maya, was born in October. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, dark curls, Daniel's eyes. Exactly. I sent my mother an announcement. A photo. The hospital bracelet with Maya's name and birth. Wait. Returned. Unopened. Same. Red stamp. Daniel's mother flew in the next day with a suitcase of homemade tamales and a quilt she had been sewing for 3 months. Since the day we told her we were expecting, she held Maya for 6 hours straight that first visit, humming something low in Spanish, and told me, this is what a grandmother does, Mija. The rest does not matter. Rosa became Maya's only grandmother in every way that counted. She visited every month. She taught Maya to count in Spanish before Maya could count in English. She kept a drawer at her house full of toys, just for her. So Maya always had something familiar waiting when she visited. I did not add up exactly how many years it had been since my mother had seen a single photo that was not returned in a sealed envelope. I simply stopped expecting otherwise. Maya turned 1. Then 2. My mother sent nothing, called no one. The silence had become a kind of weather pattern in my life, something you stop noticing because it never changed. I want to be honest about something. I did not spend those years building some elaborate plan for confrontation. I was not keeping records or preparing speeches. I was simply living my life, raising my daughter, working my job as a physical therapist, and slowly, quietly, accepting that my mother had made a choice, and that choice had a cost she was paying without seeming to notice. I noticed something else, though, almost without meaning to. Every year, Maya grew a little more aware of the world around her. She started noticing other children's grandparents at the park. She started asking questions, the simple, devastating questions that children ask without any awareness of how much weight they carry. She asked me once, watching a little boy get picked up by his grandmother at daycare, why she did not have a grandma like that. I told her she did. Grandma Rosa. She said, no, the other kind. The one that's also your mommy's. Mommy. I did not have a good answer for that. I still do not fully. The call came in February, almost exactly 6 years after the wedding. It was my father, not my mother. His voice was thinner than I remembered, more careful. He told me my mother had been having health scares. Nothing immediately dangerous, but enough to shift something in her. He told me she had been talking about me more, about Maya, about regret. He asked if she could visit, just once, just to see. I asked him directly, has she ever in 6 years acknowledged that she was wrong about any of this? He was quiet for a long moment. He said, she's trying, Hannah. I think that has to count for something. I told him I needed to think about it. I talked to Daniel that night. The way we talked through every major decision in our marriage. Sitting at the kitchen table after Maya was asleep. He told me it was my decision entirely, and that he would support whatever I chose. He said something else too, something that stuck with me. He said, I am not afraid of her visiting. I am afraid of what it teaches Maya if we let someone back in without anything actually changing. I thought about that for several days. I called my father back and told him my mother could visit. Once, on a Tuesday afternoon, at our house, with Daniel and Maya present, I told him this was not a reconciliation. It was an opportunity for her to see what she had been missing and to decide for herself what she wanted to do about it. He thanked me. He sounded, for the first time in years, like someone who actually believed something good might happen. The Tuesday arrived in early March. I spent the morning on edge, cleaning a house that did not need cleaning, rearranging things that did not need rearranging. Daniel took the morning off work. He did not say much, but he stayed close, the way he always did when he could tell I needed steadiness nearby without needing to ask for it directly. T2 in the afternoon. A car I did not recognize pulled into our driveway. My mother got out slowly. She looked older than 6 years should have made her. Grayer hair, a slight stoop to her shoulders that had not been there before. She was holding a wrapped gift, awkwardly. The way you hold something you are not entirely sure you are allowed to give. She stood on the porch for a moment before ringing the doorbell. The way someone stands outside a building they used to belong in. Maya, who had been playing near the front hallway, heard the doorbell and ran to it. Before I could reach her, she pulled the door open. I will remember the next 10 seconds for the rest of my life. My mother looked down at Maya. This small, curious, dark-curled 3-year-old standing in the doorway, looking up at her with absolutely no recognition, no fear, no familiarity, nothing but open curiosity. Maya tilted her head and asked, "Who are you?" Not unkindly, not pointedly, just genuinely. The way children ask questions, with no awareness of the weight behind them. My mother's mouth opened. Nothing came out for several seconds. I watched something happen on her face that I had genuinely never seen in 29 years of knowing her. The composure cracked. Not dramatically, not with tears, immediately. Just a kind of stunned stillness, as if she was finally encountering, in the form of a 3-year-old's honest question, the actual size of what she had given up. I walked to the door and stood behind Maya, my hand on her shoulder. "This is Grandma Carol," I told her evenly. "My mom." Maya looked between us, processing this new information the way 3-year-olds process everything, quickly and without much ceremony. Then she said, simply, "Oh," and held up the toy she had been carrying, a small plastic dinosaur for my mother to see. The way children offer the most important thing they currently have to anyone new who appears in front of them. My mother knelt down, slowly, and looked at the dinosaur. She said, "That's a very nice dinosaur." In a voice that was not entirely steady, Maya nodded, satisfied with this response, and ran back into the house to find another toy to show her. My mother stayed kneeling on the porch for a moment longer, looking at the space where Maya had been standing. We sat in the living room. Daniel made coffee, the same coffee he made for everyone, no distinction, no message in it, simply hospitality extended without conditions. My mother held her cup without drinking from it. She watched Maya, who had returned with a small parade of toys to show off, entirely unaware of the gravity in the room around her. My mother said, eventually, "She's beautiful, Hannah," I said. "She is. She has Daniel's eyes," my mother said. I did not respond to that immediately. I let the silence sit, the way I had let so many silences sit over the past 6 years. "She has my stubbornness, too," I said finally. "Apparently that part comes through no matter what." My mother's eyes filled, finally, with the kind of tears that had nowhere left to hide behind composure. She said, "I missed everything. Her birth, her first steps. I do not even know when she started talking." I said, "You did." I did not say it to wound her. I said it because it was simply true, and 6 years of careful, measured politeness had taught me that the truth, stated plainly, mattered more than any cushioning I could wrap around it. She asked, quietly, if it was too late. I told her I did not know. I told her that depended entirely on what she did next, not what she said in this conversation, but what she actually did, consistently, over time. The way Rosa had shown up every month for 3 years without ever being asked twice. I told her that Maya did not need an apology. Maya was 3. She needed a grandmother who showed up, reliably without conditions. The same way, every single time. I told her that if she was not prepared to do that, it would be kinder to both of them if she did not start something she could not finish. She left an hour later. Daniel walked her to her car. I do not know exactly what they said to each other on the porch, but I watched through the window as my mother stood there for a long moment afterward, looking back at the house. That evening, after Maya was asleep, Daniel and I sat on the back porch the way we often did, talking quietly about nothing important. He asked me how I felt. I told him I felt strange, not triumphant, not vindicated, just strange. The way you feel after a long anticipated storm finally arrives and turns out to be quieter than you expected. He asked if I thought she would actually try. I told him I genuinely did not know. I told him it no longer mattered as much as it once would have, because Maya already had a grandmother who showed up every single month without fail, who had never once needed convincing. Whatever my mother decided to do now was simply extra welcome if it came. Not required. It has been 4 months since that Tuesday. My mother calls now every other week, sometimes to talk to me, increasingly to ask if she can talk to Maya for a few minutes. She visited twice more, both times calling ahead, both times bringing something small and age-appropriate, both times staying within whatever boundaries I set without arguing about them. She has not once, in 4 months, used the phrases she used to use. Different backgrounds, complicated dynamics. She has also not, even once, offered the words "I am sorry," directly and without qualification. I am not certain she ever will. Some people are simply not built for that particular kind of honesty, even when they want to be. But she shows up now, consistently, without being asked twice. I am watching. The way I watch everything now, patiently, without assuming the ending in advance. Maya still does not entirely understand why Grandma Carol was not always around. She is 3. She lives almost entirely in the present, untroubled by history. She has no context for yet. One day, she will ask harder questions. She will ask why there are 6 years of birthdays with no cards, 6 years of milestones with no calls. When she does, I will tell her the truth plainly. The way I have learned to tell the truth about all of this, I will tell her that some people need to see something with their own eyes before they can understand what they almost lost. I will tell her that her grandmother spent 6 years deciding what kind of family she wanted, and changed her mind only after meeting, for 10 unbearable seconds, the exact cost of that decision, standing in a doorway asking, "Who are you?" I hope, by then, the answer to that question will simply be, "Your grandmother, who has always been here." I do not know yet if that is the story we will end up telling. But for the first time in 6 years, it is a story that has a chance. That is where things stand today. If you have ever watched someone finally understand what they missed, only once, it was almost too late. I want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. And if this story reminded you that showing up consistently matters more than any apology ever could, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. I will see you in the next one.